This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, I'm Gregory Pallo, and I'm the first Junior Vice Commander for the Department of Wisconsin, and I've been asked to do adjutant training. I did adjutant training at the fall conference, and this is pretty close to the same outline and format that I used before. The information doesn't change, and it's good information. So here we go. What are the 8 required documents needed for every meeting? How many years must a chapter records be maintained? Those answers will be answered as we go on through the program. The adjutant is responsible for keeping the chapter's records and managing the chapter's official correspondence. She must keep detailed records of the chapter meetings and business affairs. All motions considered by the chapter should be recorded along with the names of the members who make, second, or speak on the motions. All monies received or spent by the chapter must be recorded in his or her records. Treasurer's report is part of the minutes. What I have here is I've made a copy of the sheet that I use when I do adjutant. I've got the date up here, and then I've got the next meeting date down here, pre-done. I have done written here next to open meeting, but if we don't do an item, then I cross that out because we didn't do it. But I've got it in the order that the meeting is going to be run by the commander. If I don't have enough room here where I'm writing, I just put a little arrow over here on the right, and then I go to the back side and I take the additional information on the back side of the sheet. I also have a roster of who's there. I've got the date of the meeting, who the meeting is, what chapter, and then I've got the officers, and I have them by name, and then they sign in when they're here. Members can print their name and then sign it, and any VIP and guests can put their name in and sign it. I also, down here at the bottom, I have where it is in the on my computer. The adjutant is responsible for ensuring chapter members are aware of the times and location of the meeting. If a special meeting is called, the reason for the meeting should be stated on the meeting notice. Each business meeting, the adjutant should read the minutes of the preceding meeting and make sure that a motion of acceptance or rejection is passed. What I do is I send out postcards before every meeting. I use double-sided or return postcards. The reminders to the members that the meeting is coming soon. It gives vital information regarding the chapter and location of the meetings. And then I say, beware using nonprofit postage with the U.S. Postal Service and a printer. Now I put this in because there's a certain price that you will be building up if you buy the postcards yourself, you print them, you're going to have to pay for ink. And when you buy the postcards, they're already pre-stamped, so that price is the price of the postcards. For some chapters, it would be cheaper than going to a printer to print your postcards, or in addition to that, have the nonprofit postage put on it by the Postal Service. What you need to do is you need to look into both of these and compare them and find out what's best for you. It is a lot easier for you time-wise if you have somebody else do it for you. But cost-wise, it may or may not be the right avenue for your chapter to take. The postcard, the double-sided postcard, is two postcards put together backwards to each other. On one side, I've got the information, and then I've got the return address. And then down here, I use mail merge Excel spreadsheet for the addresses, and I print this on a Word document. On the postcard, I've got who's sending the postcard, when the meetings are. There's a little advertisement for a get-together, a pre-meal get-together with this chapter, and then bring a friend if you want to introduce somebody to the DAV. The postcard always starts with chapter meeting. Don't forget the chapter meeting and when the chapter meeting is going to be. And then I put in some information about some of the things that are happening. On this one, the particular thing is that we're having a forget-me-not drive in Bratfry. And we moved our meeting place from Red Granite to Nashkero, and that notice is in here for the people also. I had a little extra room, so I put a disclaimer in here saying that if you donate your money to our chapter, it's the same as if you were donating it to national. You get the same tax exempt status. And of course, it's the adjutant's responsibility to address all donations that are made. If they are specifically given by a person and you know who the person is, you need to send them a thank you note. Down at the bottom, I have where the meeting place is, and then there's names and phone numbers for contacting people if you need assistance with it. And then the return address is the mailing address of the chapter. And when you put this through, you go through one side and you get one address here. And then when you put it through the second time, it prints like this, and there's an address here also. And you'll split it across right here, and you'll have two postcards. And the printing is a lot faster than trying to do the one at a time. Each chapter meeting, the adjutant should read all correspondence received between meetings and see that all matters that require action by the chapter are properly disposed of. He/she should answer all correspondence promptly and file copies of his/her answers with the chapter records. Excuse me, I got medication and my mouth dries up. The adjutant is responsible for notifying the officers, committee members, and delegates of their election or appointment, as well as furnishing committees with whatever documents are required for the performance of their duties. The adjutant is responsible for furnishing a list of convention delegates to national and department headquarters. This is a copy of the delegate credentials that the department uses. You've got the name of the person, their chapter, their address, information, and it has to be signed by the commander, and it has to be signed by the adjutant. And these credentials have to be turned in, because if you don't have these credentials at the convention, you cannot vote. When you're going to national, national has one on a different form, but you can see they list the names and the membership numbers, chapter number, the state, the date of the election. The delegates need to be elected by your chapter. And of course, you have to have the commander's signature and you have to have the adjutant's signature in order for this to be valid. This is your credential form, whereas with the state, you have to turn in your credential form. With national, it's mailed to them and it's on record with them. The adjutant is also responsible for filing the chapter officer report form immediately following the annual election and installation of officers in compliance with the national bylaws. One copy needs to be emailed to national headquarters at officerreportinfo@dav.org. This form must be submitted to national headquarters by email only. That's their new requirement, and that's the way they accept it. Also, you need to send a copy to department, and this is their email address, and you need to send one to the National Service Office in Milwaukee, and this is the email address for the National Service Office. The officer report, the original after election and installation. 10 days, you have 10 days in order to get this report to national. You send copies to national, department, National Veteran Service Office, County Veteran Service Office, and chapter. You keep one for your records. Now I've added in here, you don't have to do it with the County Veteran Service Office, but I recommend that you do it because every now and then somebody's going to come into the Veteran Service Office and they're going to ask if there's any organizations in the area, and he'll have the information that he could give to the veteran when the veteran asks the question. Changes. Anytime you have some changes to your officer's report, it's mandatory that you notify everyone again with it. Anything with the header section, an officer change, official mail address, facsimile email, or telephone change, address, facsimile, email, or telephone of one of the officers, and you need to turn in the officer report annually, regardless of whether there's an officer change. Now on the officer's election report, bear with me, it's all new to me. Okay, on the officer's election report, if anything up here changes, you have to send a copy, an updated copy to everyone concerned. And up here in the top right here, you need to put the word revised. And that highlights them to the fact that there are changes to your officer report. Now, I said that the officer report has to be done annually. As with the COVID that we just had, a lot of our department and national and a lot of chapters didn't have any officer elections. So they continued with the officers that they had. Well, the officers began their term in the old officers report, and they ended it in the officers report for that year. What you have to do is you have to change this year so that you can do a whole year, even though you haven't elected any new officers or anything. So this makes it mandatory for you to do it annually. Also, it has to be signed by the commander and the adjutant. Now, in the case when you don't have elections and everything, what I do is I fill out a new report, I change this date, I put revised up here on the top, I put a little arrow thing saying sign here, I mail it to the commander in a number 10 envelope, and I put in there a self-addressed stamped 9 envelope so that he can mail it back to me. I mail it to him, he signs it, dates it, mails it back to me, I sign and date it, and then I forward it to where it needs to be forwarded. The adjutant is responsible for the membership records and should make certain that they are kept up to date. The adjutant shall also be responsible for timely notification to national and department headquarters of changes of address and deaths of members. This is the form for change of address or death notice. Sometimes when I do the mailings, I get a postcard back saying the person's deceased. So I can't put in a date of death, but I just put in here recently, and then in the remarks I say post office notified me that he was dead, the family notified me that they were deceased, etc. Just a little brief remark here. And then this again, you have to email it. You email it to membership@dav.org. The income tax 990N is required to be filed by the 15th day of the 5th month after the close of the tax year. For our tax year, it's November 15th. If you go to this web page, you'll come up with a way to file your 990N postcard. Now, if you haven't done one before and you need to register your chapter, then you would follow this line and you would fill in the blanks on this section of it. If you already have done your postcard, then you go over to manage your submissions and you click here, and I'm not going to go through all the process and everything, but it's pretty quick to send them out and to get them replied to. Now, you have 3 years if you forget to do it, but it's not advisable to forget to do it, because if you don't do it in 3 years, you lose your tax exempt status, and you have to go through a process to get your tax exempt status back again. Now, I put this with the adjutant and not with the treasurer, because usually the treasurer won't be doing this type of paperwork. So I put it in here with the adjutant. I, as an adjutant, do the paperwork for it. State of the chapter report. It's a report of the last year's events of the chapter. It's due annually at the district conference. what I've done here is, this is a copy of one that I wrote up several years ago. This was the date of the district conference. I mean, district conference. State of the chapter is what I call it. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but I did it with state of the chapter. Put in a thing here, when we meet, where we meet, and the time that we meet. Put in a little bit about what happened over the year, what our members attended, sending postcards out before every meeting, and then our status on the membership goal. I also put in here places that we have donated to. I don't put any amounts in because that's already taken care of. It's on the sheet in department, so there's no need to say it over again. Then a little closing comment. Now, I prefer to have everything on one page, short and sweet. If you get into 2 or 3 pages of writing about what your chapter's done and everything, then you're going to have people not reading it. This becomes part of the district officer's report. When he makes his report to department at convention, he attaches these from every chapter to that report. All chapter records should be maintained for 7 years. This does not apply to original documents that do not expire, such as but not limited to chapter charter, contracts, licenses, leases, constitution and bylaws, regulations, and rulings by the National Judge Advocate, tax returns, and audits. The required documentation that the adjutant needs for a meeting is the charter, the national constitution and bylaws, the department constitution and bylaws, the chapter constitution and bylaws, the official ritual, Robert's Rule of Order, chapter roster, and officers report. You can get the national constitution and bylaws and the department constitution and bylaws online. You can also get the official ritual online. And Robert's Rule of Order, you can get that online. So you can get by with not having these as long as you have a computer with web page access so that you can address these during a meeting if you need to address them. And that's what I've got. I guess we're up to questions now.